Our Test cricket team's on fire as our Golden Women complete an Ashes whitewash at home. A world-shattering trade completed in the NBA. And where have our young Aussie stars ended up in the world football transfer market? This is Sportswatch. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Six News Sportswatch. My name is Tin Nguyen and joining me as always is Lachlan Sheriff. Lachlan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So we've got a big agenda to cover today, a lot of big stories both here in Australia and around the world. So I think we'll just jump into it. We'll go straight into some Test cricket. Obviously, there's some big stories around the world right now, but let's talk about one of the biggest ones. Obviously, our men's have just beaten Sri Lanka and pretty comfortably as well. So, Lachlan, what do you think of what's going on over there?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can't complain with that, can you? I mean, won by what, an innings and 242 runs? Absolutely brilliant. I mean, look, I always believed that we were stronger than Sri Lanka on paper. But, travelling over to a country, playing away from home, it's never going to be easy. So that's why I'm really proud of the way our boys persevered and fought through that one. Usman Khawaja obviously was a standout for me, as was Steve Smith. They were both wonderful with the bat. Once Sri Lanka were batting, I thought all of our bowlers were superb, knocked them over pretty quickly, managed them by a whole inning. So, yeah, can't complain with that, can you?
No, you really can't. And I think one of the things is everyone always talks about how difficult it is to bat in the subcontinent, of course, the drier pitches, the spin, that sort of thing. And I think like the way they batted out, they looked just so comfortable at home, especially Kawaja, who, maybe was getting a lot of questions thrown around his head, but, he's really proved himself as someone who really performs at this level in the subcontinent. So I think it's been a really, really good performance out of all of our batters who only had to bat the one time. I mean, they just put up 654, and then after that it was all the bowlers. So yeah, I mean, it was just an incredible performance overall.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, superb work from our bowlers as well. We focused on the batters earlier, but Nathan Lyon and Matthew Kuhneman especially. I think over the two innings, I want to say they had 8 wickets between them, or 16 wickets between them, with 8 each over the two innings, which is just superb numbers. Again, you really can't complain. So look, that's a wonderful result for our boys. Also, we've got a second test to play. I believe that starts Thursday, so we'll take this on board. We'll go into it. We won't be too overconfident. I know we're definitely going to keep our heads up, knowing that, again, we're playing overseas. Sri Lanka at any point can turn it on and can give us a real problem, but like I said, that's a wonderful start. That's exactly what we wanted to see in that first test, so I'm really glad we got it done.
Yeah, and again, I mean, yeah, it's the confidence we need. I mean, to play like that overseas is always a really good thing. Obviously, playing overseas is always really tough. So we always take a result like that. We always put a result like that on board, and hopefully, come the next test, whether they put out the new wicket or not, yeah, it should be good. Should be good.
Yeah. What do you make of the, I just want to ask you about the squad really quickly, because right before we saw that Sam Constas wasn't going to play, so that was really interesting to me. Despite all the rumours that we were going to field some younger, more inexperienced players, this really was a strong squad. I mean, you look at our opening batting order: Khawaja, Head, Labuschagne, Smith, English, Carey. I mean, that's quite a strong squad. So were you surprised by that, or was it a bit, expected that we were still going to go strong despite what the media were saying?
I mean, I feel like it's tough because you obviously have to hit some sort of balance between fielding a strong squad and fielding the youth, especially in foreign countries, especially in subcontinent sort of surroundings and circumstances. So I think it was really interesting to see that that we did drop some of the younger lads. I did really want to see Constas get a chance, but yeah, I mean, I think the decision worked out better in the end. So yeah, I'm not too fast, but hopefully this next test we can get some of those younger lads in to have a crack at batting in subcontinent surroundings.
That's what I was going to ask next, because I'm really curious to wonder if, are we going to bring some of that youth in? Are we going to see some of the younger lads get a go? Or are we really trying to make a statement here and win? And, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, that famous saying. So I'm just a bit curious. I'd love to see Constance in the squad, but, I mean, who do you drop? I mean, you can't drop Khawaja, you can't drop Smith. There's definitely a lot of players in there who deserve a chance, but at the same time, I'm just a bit curious who you drop. So are there any replacements you'd specifically like to see for the next test, or what are you thinking?
I mean, I don't really want anyone dropped. That's the truth. I mean, it was such a good performance. You don't really see anyone that's really being droppable. We don't want to make too many changes, but at the same time, I feel like if we want to, blood in some of the youth, it will be tough because we're going to inevitably have to. So it makes it tough. It's a tough decision, but I think at the end of the day, if once they make that decision, if they choose to make that decision, it'll be something they'll be able to figure out. And I'm sure in the end, it'll be worth it in the end if we can get some of those younger lads on the pitch.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I mean, like I said, Constance is obviously the main one we want to see. We all loved him, especially on Boxing Day during the Melbourne Test. I think a lot of people were hoping he would play Sri Lanka. I almost wonder if there was a bit of pressure to play in Sri Lanka, considering this is a free-to-wear series. There's a lot of people who are wanting to tune in and see this guy play. So that's why I was a bit surprised he was dropped in the first place. Speaking for the second Test, again, I know that we absolutely smashed Sri Lanka in that first Test, and you would maybe consider that if it isn't broke, don't change it up. But I do think we'll see some younger players, not just Constance, a few others as well. But again, I'm really happy with what that first Test produced. And again, like you said, I'm not really too fussed what happens now because either way, we're doing quite well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, pretty much no matter what happens here, we've gotten a really good result. To be honest, unless something absolutely dramatic happens in that second test, I don't see how any result in that second test affects what we saw in that first test. Especially if we field a younger squad, I don't see much that take away from what's been achieved over here, so over there. So yeah, I really think there's not much that really can be done in terms of sort of like ruining the series. So I feel like there's really no more risks. There's really no risk left to take. There's only reward to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, this is our last. The second test against Sri Lanka will be our last test until June, I believe. We do have some one days against England, South Africa, and Afghanistan, if I'm not mistaken. But look, this is the last chance now for a while for some of these lads to really make an effort and show why they deserve to be in the squad going into next test, going into I believe it's a one-off test against South Africa in June, and obviously the Ashes next year. So, it's a big chance. There's a lot of work to be done, and there's a huge opportunity for some of those younger guys to really stand for their place if they are chosen for that second test in Sri Lanka, of course.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some lads that are going to be gunning to get into that playing that World Test Championship final. I feel like obviously we've got this test in Sri Lanka now, and then once they get back, there'll be the domestic Sheffield Shield, which will be really interesting to see how that turns out. So yeah, I think any performances from here will be really interesting because people will be wanting to make that test squad, and of course make the Ashes squad as well at the end of the year. So yeah, could be really interesting. Now to the women's Ashes. Of course, that just wrapped up. We just had the big day-nighter test. And of course, we just wrapped up the series as well. A big 16-0 series win to the Aussies, a complete whitewash over the English. So before we go into the test, let's just talk about this series. I mean, what do you think? 16-0. It's a pretty commandeering scoreline to win every game in a bunch of different formats over the old enemy.
I mean, look, I'll say the exact same thing I said about the men's squad. You really can't complain with that. 16-0. I mean, who doesn't love beating England, firstly? Whether it's men's Ashes, women's Ashes, whatever sport it is, who cares? It's just great to beat them. Look, I do think that maybe this England squad isn't as strong. We do have to take that into consideration. I'm sure that even the players knew that themselves. So it's not like we've come out and necessarily shocked everyone, but either way, it's still great to absolutely smash your rivals, isn't it? So look, there was obviously a few different formats in this. There was the one-dayers, there was, I believe, some T20s. So there was a lot of difference to this, a lot of different formats. But what I really enjoyed watching was the test. Obviously, that was in Melbourne. Only took us 3 days. We had record crowds. It was wonderful to watch. And yeah, we had a few centuries. I believe the first two women's centuries to ever happen at the MCG in Test cricket, which is just incredible. We'll talk about more of that later. But like you said, you really cannot complain with what we saw.
Yeah, I mean, it was a strong performance. I mean, of course, like you said, probably wasn't it was a younger England squad on paper. It was always going to be one that was coming in a bit inexperienced, and I think that showed on the field. But yeah, no, obviously the Australians played well. It's of course, I mean, it's still you're still playing England. You're still playing a top Test nation in the world, regardless. So I think to not just win, but to dominate the way they did was very impressive, especially in a multi-format series like that where you're playing so many different types of cricket and you're playing multiple days on end, consecutive days. It's the multi-format series like the one they're playing the women's Ashes is it's not an easy thing to get around because there's a lot of mentality changes, a lot of changes to the way you play. So I think it's really interesting to see just how well they played and how well they presented themselves. So yeah.
Absolutely. I do just want to focus on, I mentioned them earlier, It was Annabelle Sutherland and Beth Mooney with the first ever two Test centuries for a female Australian in Test cricket at the MCG. I mean, how wonderful to see that. Firstly, it was Sutherland, she had 163. I mean, they just couldn't play. She had 22 boundaries, 21 fours. And then Beth Mooney came in, she had 7 fours herself, 106. So obviously it was very strong batting. There were a few other good performances, mainly those two, but a few other good performances as well. So what did you make of us with the bat in that Test series and how dominant we were?
I mean, yeah, it was a really good performance. Obviously, I mean, like you said, first two centuries in women's Test cricket history at the MCG. Of course, I mean, thinking about the event, I mean, it was the first women's Test since 1948, something like that, something ridiculous like that, 80 something years. Um, it was obviously anything that came out of that match would be a bit of history, and it's some really good history now. Of course, you see they put the names up on the plaques and everything. It's important history that we get. Women's cricketers equal opportunities to play at the biggest grounds, play at the historic grounds, play the best cricket they can, and that's Test cricket, and to play Test cricket at grounds like the MCG and to play it at grounds like Lords and those sort of places, that's really important for the future of the game and for the growth of the game. So yeah, I think the event was really good, and I think hopefully this promotes further opportunities for cricket, like not just in Australia but around the world, and hopefully in England as well, and places like that.
Absolutely. And I mean, we can talk about how it was our first, female test match at the MCG since what, 1948, like you said. And then obviously there's a lot of questions you ask, like, should we have, 5 tests in a series between women? Should we have, 5 days instead of 4? But I just want to see, like, more test cricket between female players at the MCG and all around Australia, obviously. In general, I mean, like you said, like, who's complaining about watching more cricket? We had record crowds. We didn't even need that 4th day to hit record crowds. So I really do hope that this was a message set to everyone that women's cricket is here to stay and that we want to see it more. We want to see it more frequently. Not just Test, obviously. We want to see the one days. We want to see the T20 as well. But there is nothing like Test cricket. So hopefully we do see a lot more of that around this country in the following years.
Yeah, 100%. It's an important thing, and of course, like thinking from a domestic standpoint as well. I mean, currently the women's don't play first class cricket. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's only one days and T20s, the women's Big Bash and the WNCL. So hopefully maybe there's some sort of women's Sheffield Shield or something of the like that they can conjure up as well, because I feel like more with like the longer format of the game, especially in women's cricket, does tend to be a bit neglected. So I feel like there's a place for that sort of thing, and it's something that they should really be promoting, especially in the larger nations where people will be keen to go watch the tests, and where the players will likely have grown up watching Test cricket both from men's and from women. So yeah, that's a really important thing that I think they should really promote, especially here.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, I'm just so proud of this women's team in general from this 2025 Ashes against England. Whether it was the T20 or the one days or the recent test, I mean, they were just so dominant. And it's so fun to watch, to be able to see these players out there doing their thing. I'm really looking forward to it. They do play again in March, so a few T20s against New Zealand, so we're tuning in for those as well. I reckon everyone does, but yeah, just how good to see it.
It's really really good. It's great to see the growth of the women's game. But anyways, we'll move on. We'll head across the ocean to the United States and the NBA, where a massive deal has occurred between the Los Angeles Lakers, the Dallas Mavericks, and Utah Jazz. A trade that has just sent shockwaves not just through the NBA but across the whole world. Obviously, Luka Doncic has now become a Los Angeles Laker, pretty much in exchange for Anthony Davis. So I'll ask you about this. This is a lot more of your repertoire basketball. So I mean, what do you think? This is just an absolutely insane movement that's occurred.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll be honest, like a lot of people, Shams Charania, he broke it first. I thought he'd been hacked. I thought there was no way the Dallas Mavericks are making that trade to the Los Angeles Lakers, giving a conference rival your best player. Arguably, he can go down as like a top 10 player ever. Who knows? The sky's the limit for this guy. But, obviously the full trade was Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris going out to the Lakers. Mavericks got Anthony Davis and Max Christie back, as well as a 2029 first round pick. Utah were also involved. They got Jalen Hood-Schifino, the LA Clippers second rounder in 2025, and the Mavericks second rounder in 2025. So, sure, they were there as well. We'll mainly focus on the Lakers and the Mavericks. Starting off with the Lakers, I mean, how have they done this? How have they pulled this off? They seem to do this all the time, whether it was that Pau Gasol trade back in the late 2000s, or even just getting LeBron and AD to Los Angeles in the first place. Whenever they look down, they always seem to pull out one huge thing, and to completely change their fortune. So I do see that Luka Doncic jersey you've got in the background. So I know you've got a few opinions on this. What do you make of this trade?
I mean, yeah, I'm a Mavericks supporter. It's pretty public online that I support the Dallas Mavericks, and I think uh yeah, no, it was tough to swallow. It was tough. It was a tough pill to swallow, definitely. Of course, you could argue that maybe perhaps the trade probably doesn't really isn't really to our benefit when we're trading our franchise player. But I think if you ignore that, just from a Luka Doncic perspective, it's really interesting because I feel like most Mavericks fans would have had this idea that he was, going to be a Maverick for life. He was going to, play for Dallas for his entire career. He was good, almost the heir to, Dirk Nowitzki's throne. And I think it's a trait that has really caught most of us off guard. And I mean, it's caught everyone off guard, but as Mavericks fan, it's ones that's really caught us off guard. It's almost like a stab to the heart in a way. This is a player that we loved in Dallas. We gave this guy like almost like a public holiday. Almost like it's insane to think about because he's a player that loves Dallas, and Dallas is a town that loves him. And so, yeah, obviously it's a tough thing to take. So yeah, it's really interesting that's happened, and I feel like most of us won't hate Luca. We'll keep an eye out on him in LA for sure. We'll be there when if he wins any trophies, we'll be there supporting him. But yeah, no, it's a tough pill to take. It really is.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't support either team. I don't support Utah either. I don't support any of the three teams involved. I have no horse in this race, but even I am a little sad to see Luka Doncic leave Dallas. Like you said, I was fully in on the whole hair to Dirk Nowitzki thing. They both lost their first final series. I really want to see Luka go back a few years later like Dirk did and get it done for Dallas. That would have been such an incredible fairy tale, but some things in life just aren't meant to be, and unfortunately this was one of them. What I do look at from this trade is it's a weird trade for both teams. I'll start with the Lakers. Now, obviously, I'm not saying the Lakers should have made this trade. You make this trade 10 times out of 10. But they are very short in their centre depth now. I mean, it's Jackson Hayes, it's Jared Vanderbilt, who I personally think is more of a power forward, and then Christian Koloko, who's really undeveloped. So it's not much of a centre rotation now. They could make a trade. I think Walker Kessler is who they're going to try and go for. They also could sign, like, I don't know, Montrezl Harrell, or maybe even bring Dwight Howard back from overseas. So there are a few options. However, it's no one as good as Anthony Davis. So what do you quickly make of the Los Angeles Lakers and their whole centre depth right now? Because it's not as strong as it was, obviously.
I mean, yeah, from an LA perspective, of course you're gaining Luka Doncic, who is, of course, is naturally brilliant playmaker. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. I mean, of course, in center they're going to be a lot weaker now without Anthony Davis, and I think the more interesting thing is they're going to be a lot weaker on defense too, because of course Anthony Davis was obviously not a gifted defender, but he was obviously a quite a strong like defender, and Luka Doncic is even from a Mavericks perspective, he's never been that great on defense. He's always been even a bit of a liability, to be honest. So it's an interesting position for LA because they're clearly banking on a very a lot of offense. But you know, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out, especially considering they've got to sort of take on the year with a bit of a weaker defensive structure, weaker center depth. Maybe not as you could argue maybe they're not as strong as they were after this trade. So, but at the end of the day, they're still gaining. One of the NBA's great players. So I think it'll be interesting to see how this trade pans out for them, especially.
Absolutely. Then on the contrary, you've got Dallas now. I don't know what they're doing here, if I'm being deadly honest with you. I mean, Luka Doncic was their franchise guy. But even that, you're not getting much of a package back. You're getting Anthony Davis, who's over 30 and injury prone, teaming off with two other 30-plus guys in Klay Thompson and Kyrie Irving. You also only get one first-round pick back. I mean, Mikal Bridges and Rudy Gobert both commanded 4 first-round picks when they got traded. They're not even in the same ballpark as Luka. They are a whole nother league away from him. So, sure, Anthony Davis is a good defender. He's a good player. I suppose it does help their center. I don't think they really needed to improve their center depth, if I'm being honest. They already had Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. I don't know. I don't think Anthony Davis was too much of a requirement there. But, Max Christie, is he going to help? Maybe. He's an alright player, but maybe not. Who knows? But from a Dallas perspective, what do you make of this? Because it just seems really confusing from their point of view.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you what we're doing here. To be honest, I really wish I could, but I feel like I'm just as lost as everybody. Obviously, I mean, yeah, like I said, it's Luka Doncic. The fact that we're but the one first rounder is just insane. It feels like it's a bit of an underselling for one of the and for what is pretty much an MVP candidate player. But yeah, no, I mean, look, Anthony Davis, he like I feel like when he's good, he's good. He definitely gets going, but like you said, he's very injury prone. I don't have absolute optimism. Max Christie, yeah, he's a solid player, but but again, we're talking about Luka Doncic here. I feel like for what we've gained, sure, we've gained two very good players, but we've done it in the expense of like a great player. And to me, it's weird business. It's weird sports business. It doesn't really. I couldn't understand what really made this offer go through. And if when more news comes out, I'm sure it will come to light. But yeah, I think it's a perplexing deal, even from just the Dallas perspective.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, look, obviously the Dallas Mavericks GM Nico Harrison, he's got some idea in mind. I'm not sure. He has surprised me a bit with what he said. Obviously, the whole defense wins championship things. I'm sure it does, but so does Luka Doncic. I think. You also consider the fact that like they loved him so much, and he was just such an integral part of that series. Like you said, he had a whole holiday in Dallas. It's so weird that it just ended overnight, and the fact that it was Doncic not only was fine in Dallas, he was happy in Dallas. The fact that it was actually Dallas who offered the trade to Los Angeles just feels so confusing. And I do think something's gone down behind the scenes because I'm really not sure what else could have possibly happened here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, geez, it's a deal that really did catch everyone off guard. I mean, I feel like in about 10 years' time, you'll be able to ask anyone where they were when the Luka deal went through. It really was just one of those things that just happened. There was no noise about it beforehand. No one had any idea it was coming. It just sort of happened and it was through. And I think, yeah, it's one of those really big sports deals that people will be remembering in about 10 years' time and 15 years' time. Okay, and we'll move on to our next segment now, where we'll be talking about American football, but in particular, a big story for Australians in particular. The NFL have announced that they will be holding games in Melbourne at the MCG in October of next year. So obviously, this is the big moment to get some exhibition NFL down under here. First time in Melbourne and first time in Australia, I think I want to say 25 years. I think it was early 2000s or late 90s that they came down to Sydney. So what do you think of this? I mean, we're both NFL fans. We both follow the NFL. So yeah, what do you reckon?
Yeah, look, huge. I mean, what else can you say? It's a great coup for Victorians, especially. Obviously, all Australians will travel, I'm sure, but for the Victorians, for the Melburnians especially, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be great. Obviously, the NFL have tried their hands in other countries. Usually, it's worked. United Kingdom, the London games, obviously very successful. They've gone to Mexico, they've gone to Germany, recently went to Brazil. They're going to Spain next year, and then Australia 2026. They're definitely trying to branch out and cause a bigger market in different countries. And I think we can absolutely do it. I think we can. We have up to 3 games. That's what they said. So it could be more, but we will get a minimum of 3 games, which will be good. They'll be spread out over the years, obviously. 2026, they said it will probably be the Eagles versus the Rams who come to Melbourne. Now that's a very good game, assuming the roster is somewhat similar to what it is now. Obviously, the Eagles have Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown. I could go on, but they've also got the Aussie Jordan Malinauskas. So no, it wasn't surprising to me that they chose the Eagles. Obviously, not only are they a good team, they'll get eyeballs with Malinauskas in general. So what do you make of NFL coming to Melbourne and also the prospect of an Eagles-Rams game in 2026?
I mean, yeah, I'm just in love with it. I'm just in love with it. I love going to sports, so the more you can go to different sporting events is just sick. So, I mean, to have the NFL come to Melbourne is awesome. I mean, I feel like American football as a sport in general, like not just the NFL, but college football is one that's starting to gain a lot more publicity in Australia. I mean, when I was in year 7, like I'd say me and maybe a few people watched NFL. By year 11, year 12, we were staying inside at lunchtime to watch the Super Bowl. I mean, that's how far. I mean, that's how much the game has grown. It's really a game that has gotten a lot of exposure. So I think by playing here, it's only just going to take the game further. And of course, the Rams have advertising rights here. This is sort of an advertising territory that the Rams have. They have the LA Rams Australia account. And the Eagles, of course, they've got Jordan Mailata, who is obviously from, he's from Sydney. He played rugby league. He played for, I believe, the Rabbitohs, I want to say. And it's a massive opportunity, not only for fans to get onto the sport, but for the NFL and for even the Eagles and the Rams to find a fan base. Obviously, the Eagles are massive enough as is, but even like the Rams who have even struggled to capture fans in LA, they could really pick up some good fans out here in Australia.
Absolutely, and I think that's what it's all about. I mean, we get like exhibition games in other sports all the time. The Premier League will come, they'll play games. We had the US basketball team having an exhibition game here a few years ago. So look, we always get big exhibition games, and they sell out. We really do show our love for other sports, which is great. Whether it be Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, wherever it might be. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. Because I think this is another opportunity to show just how much Australians love sport, show how much they love the NFL in general, because like you said, it really has grown in this country over the last probably 4 or 5 years. I'd say maybe lockdown and COVID played a big part of that. Everyone's inside looking for new things to watch. Obviously, the Super Bowl each year is massive. So look, we definitely have made a few strides to becoming you can't say NFL country, can you? It's not really a thing, but a country that watches NFL, a country that likes NFL. So again, I'm really looking forward to seeing, hopefully the Eagles and Rams. I don't think it's confirmed, but I think it probably will be Eagles Rams. So like I said, that's a blockbuster game. And look, again, there's going to be at least 3 games, so it'll be spread out. So what other teams would you like to see here over the next 3 years, 3 games we play? Hopefully more, but what other teams do you think would maybe come down?
I mean, there's going to be a bias. I'm a Patriots fan. Obviously, I want my Patriots down here. That's the truth. Everyone wants their own team down here. That is the reality of it. But I think the truth is, just if we can get a variety of teams coming down here, that's just better for everyone. I mean, obviously, I feel like the Eagles and the Rams will always end up involved one way or the other. I mean, like I said, they have the advertising rights down here, but we can get big teams like the Chiefs, the Cowboys, teams like the Niners. We can get huge teams down here with big superstars. That'd go a long, long way to increasing the publicity of the league, and in particular with you know getting fans, that sort of thing.
Absolutely, and like I said, the Eagles are probably coming down because of malinauskas, which is great. We do have other Australians who could maybe come down eventually. Like right now, Patrick Murtaugh is playing for the Jaguars. We spoke about in our last episode all the punters we've got playing in the NFL and in the college football as well, who hopefully one day go to the league. So there's a lot of options. I mean, I'm a Dolphins fan. I'd love it if the Dolphins came down, but like you said, there's definitely a lot of different options, a lot of different teams. Some who might want more fan bases like the Rams, others who want to expand on their Australian players such as the Eagles and maybe the Jaguars. They still have Murtaugh by 2026, 27. So yeah, like you said, there's definitely a lot of different options. There's a lot of ways they could take this game. There's not. I don't think there's necessarily a home team that they've announced that will definitely be coming each year. Whereas if you look at Spain, it's going to be the Dolphins each year. They've actually booked that themselves. So I don't think that's happened yet. Maybe it could. Maybe we'll get one certain team coming down each year, which would be great because then they'd probably become Australia's team, and that would do wonders for their fan base. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, seeing what happens.
Yeah, 100%. Especially if it's a team like the Rams that have advertising rights down here, it'd be a really big thing for sure if they can grow their fan base here. But yeah, that's a big movement. But we'll move on to amateur hour, and in particular to the NPL, the National Premier Leagues. We've got the Victorian season's getting underway, and the New South Wales season's getting underway this weekend, actually. So if you get the opportunity, I'd recommend you get down. But let's just talk about the Community Shield final that was played last Friday at the home of the Matildas between South Melbourne and the Oakley Cannons. Obviously, South's got up 1-0 in that, and just want to ask, what do you think? What are your thoughts on that? How do you think that's going to affect the season coming up? We've got obviously there've been 2 title contenders in the past couple of seasons. They'll likely be up there again this year. So what do you think?
I mean, for sure, it was a good game. Unfortunately, it wasn't streamed. Now, that's one issue we can talk about. I unfortunately actually couldn't watch the game because I couldn't get out. But from what I've heard, it was a very good game for both teams. Some good football from both sides. It was South Melbourne who won 1-0 in the end through a Nahu Bernardo strike in the second half. So look, a good result for South Melbourne because like we talked about in our pilot, this is a bit of a different South Melbourne team. They've lost Harry Sawyer. He was their main man over the last few seasons. They've replaced him. They've got a few good signings in, but it will be interesting to see where they go from here. However, that is obviously a great start for them. As for Oakley, sure they'll be disappointed, but I think they will definitely take a few positives from that. They know how they match up now against the South Melbourne side. Again, this Oakley team's a bit different. Stefan Valentini, he no longer plays for them. He was probably one of their best players last season. He's gone, so a bit of a different team for both sides, maybe a transition period for both sides, you could say. But again, it was a great win for South Melbourne. Oakley, they'll definitely learn from that. So, look, a good show out for both teams. Obviously, they've got more important games coming up in the league, but yeah, great start, I'd say, especially for South Melbourne.
Yeah, 100%. And to start a season of silverware is always helpful for confidence. And they'll move on to next week. I believe they play. Actually, I'm not 100% sure who South Melbourne play, but of course, Oakley opened their season at home against Avondale, and I'm sure that both teams will be keen to get the season underway, get going, and they'll look forward to going through. But speaking of the season, of course, NPL Victoria starting up this weekend. I just want to ask, what are your thoughts? What were you thinking coming into, another year of National Premier League football here in Victoria?
Yeah, I'm hyped. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be great. First of all, South Melbourne, they have Port Melbourne away in their first game, so get out to that. I reckon that'll be a good game. But like we talked about, South Melbourne and Oakley, both good teams, both title contenders, I'd say. You've got Avondale, who now have Stefan Valentini back. They have Oakley in their first match as well, so I reckon that will be my game of the week in the first round. I'd recommend getting out to that in Oakley. So they're definitely title contenders as well. You've got Hume City, Lloyd Isgrove still there, they're looking good. Preston, like we talked about in our pilot, they've made a bunch of signings. They could go from being, a promotion team straight to title contenders, which they have. Maybe they'll win it all, who knows. And you've got those other teams like, Heidelberg United always going to be there. Dandenong City could prove a few people wrong and, keep it up. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. If I had to pick a winner right now, I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Because Preston might be the best team on paper, but just coming up from, VPL, you never know. I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to predict South Melbourne. I think that's the safest bet for everyone. I will say South Melbourne win it all, but what do you think?
Yeah, like you said, this is a really good year of NPL football. I think this is probably one of the closest years we've had on paper in a long time. I feel like there's just about maybe three, four teams that could really be pushing for the title here. Of course, you've got the three NSD clubs. You've got Avondale, South Melbourne, and Preston, who are going to be up there. Preston, who despite just coming up, they've made big money signings. You probably in the wake of the NSD. I mean, they're going to be absolutely must watch this season, absolutely. And of course, you'll still have Oakley, you still have Hume City, you still have Heidelberg, and even Dandy City. I think will be fine for that last final spot. I think a team that's sort of flown under the radar a bit are the Victory, who've just come up. Obviously, obviously as a youth squad, they don't sign players. They're more so focused on developing their own players. So I feel like it's been interesting because obviously they got promoted in flying colours last season from VPL one. So I think they've just kind of flown under the radar a bit. But I think it'll be interesting to see how the Victory go. Their first season back in NPL for a long time. Obviously, Melbourne Victory are a massive club, so what they bring to the NPL is obviously different from what's the usual. But I think it'll be really big to see. So if I had to pick a winner again, it's tough. It's tough. I feel like there's maybe a fairy tale in Preston winning, but again, I feel like South Melbourne are just just an incredible club, and I feel like it's going to be really tough to get past them this year. But again, I think we'll have to see. We've got cup football, we've got the NSD at the end of the year that is going to be just incredible. Obviously, these teams will be playing a lot more football than ever, so yeah, it's going to be really interesting to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. Like you said, South Melbourne, they're a big club. They expect to win it every year. No ifs or buts about it. There are a few other clubs who might fly under that. Knights, they're a big club. No one really talks about them. They had a rough season last year, but who knows? Maybe they could climb their way back up. I actually quite like Port Melbourne. I think they're a bit under the radar. They had an alright season last year. So they definitely are. It's a strong league. There's definitely a good number of teams who, maybe not all contending for the title, but there's definitely a good amount of teams who could sneak into the top six at least and make finals. So yeah, it's a great league to watch. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, and yeah, just looking forward to it being back.
100%. And I think we'll just touch on the New South Wales as well. Obviously, this one of the top two biggest National Premier League leagues here in Australia. Obviously, they get underway this weekend as well. That's going to be absolutely huge. Obviously, yeah, I mean, the New South Wales title fight is always really close every year. So I thought I'd just throw it to you. I mean, what do you think? Do you have any predictions coming up for the NPL New South Wales season?
I mean, admittedly, my knowledge on NPL and SW isn't as strong as NPL Victoria, but I can talk you through it. Look, there's going to be a lot of good teams. Like, it's always a strong league. It's always one of the best leagues to watch in the state leagues in Australia. You've also got RP and Leichhardt. I quite like them. Marconi Stallions as well, some good clubs. Rockdale, who finished first last season. You've got some clubs who maybe didn't have the best season they wanted last year, but they are now maybe trying to pick themselves up. I look at especially Sydney United and Sydney Olympic, two big clubs, neither of whom made the top four last season, so they're definitely going to be trying to get back up to where they believe they should be. So again, it's a great league. There's definitely a few teams who are going to fly under the radar, and obviously a few who can be the top dogs. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. If I had to pick a winner here, like a RP Leichhardt, I reckon they might have themselves a pretty decent season. So we'll see how they go. But what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like NPL New South Wales always has the same couple of top clubs, but there's always someone. But come finals, it always just absolutely flips on its head. That's the thing about NPL New South Wales. You can never predict it. Obviously, yeah. I mean, I imagine the same usual big clubs will be up there. I imagine it'll be Rockdale, Marconi, up here in Blacktown again, who are up there. But yeah, no, it'll be really interesting to watch. Obviously, teams like Olympic and United and City United will be trying to make comeback season. City United, of course, they came sixth. They still made finals, but obviously didn't end for them. They went the way they would have liked. Sydney Olympic, of course, who just missed out. They'll want to be pushing. Obviously, I mean they're NSD clubs this season, so I feel like they'll want big seasons in their state leagues before they take on the NSD. I feel like that's what most of the NSD clubs will be wanting. So yeah, I mean, if I had to pick a winner, I think Rockdale. I think Rockdale would go back to back. To be honest, I mean, Rockdale were incredible last season. Obviously, they had their game in the cup as well, where they were just incredible. They're a team that's just grown leaps and bounds, and their fan base is just incredible. And I think Rockdale will be hard to look past again this season. But yeah, like you said, I mean, NPL New South Wales is a top league, and really, that you can't really rule anyone out of that title until maybe the last couple of weeks of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a few other teams you can touch on, like St George, Wollongong, they just missed the finals last year. Manly United look alright. So there's definitely a lot of teams in there who can cause a bit of trouble, and I'm really looking forward to following it, seeing who wins that one.
100%. And it's time to move on to our last segment of the day. We'll just talk on some more Australian football, but specifically just some roundup on the transfers that have occurred overseas. So obviously the transfer market opened just a couple of weeks back, and a lot of our young A-League players have been making some big moves across to Europe and some moves across Europe as well. So I just want to ask, what are your thoughts on some of them? So obviously we've had some players move across to Portsmouth. We've had Jed Drew, who's been incredible for Macarthur, head across to Austria, to Hartberg, and obviously Aaron Kunda has gone on loan to Grasshopper. So, what do you think of the transfer market moves for our young players so far? And yeah, specifically the young players who've gotten moves overseas.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you mentioned, the two Portsmouth boys, Thomas Waddingham and Hayden Matthews, they're both going to have hopefully great experiences overseas. I think Waddingham was already scored, if I'm not mistaken, so that's a great start for him. Ian Kunda, obviously no longer in the A-League, he's at Bayern now. Adelaide United, former player, obviously. But he wasn't getting many minutes in the Bayern first team, so I think they switch over him to our Grasshoppers. That'll be a great move for him. Even if you look at our A-League women's players, I think Sean Fry moving to Wolfsburg is one that's gone a bit under the radar, but Wolfsburg is a big club in the women's system, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how she does as well. But no, I will touch on Portsmouth because, look, they've had a lot of our young players before. I think they are trying to kind of build a bit of a brand for having young Aussie players. Matthews, look, I do like him. He's a great defender. I think he was very good in the A-League, only 20, I believe, so definitely still a lot of potential to go. I believe he does that at Portsmouth. As for Wadding, I mean, even in a bad Brisbane Roar side, this guy was looking great. He scored a few goals, and I think the writing was on the wall for him to leave that Brisbane side eventually. So he finally has gone over to Portsmouth, and yeah, he's already scored. So not much else you can say. He's doing really well so far. Really hope he keeps it up. Really hope it works out for Matthews. And yeah, what do you think though of our young players who have moved over in this transfer window?
I mean, yeah, I think it's a good move. I mean, if the A League is producing young players who are heading across to Europe, then that's only better for the league. If we're I mean, realistically, there's nothing wrong with being a development league, especially if we're getting, the best players possible playing in the best leagues, because at the end of the day, that only benefits us and that will benefit our clubs in the long run with stuff like transfers. Especially, I mean, Hayden Matthews went for, I believe they said it was a record Sydney FC transfer outgoing fee. So, I mean, that's just incredible. That's just the sort of things that you want to be hearing with these things, especially with such young talent coming out of here. And I mean, yeah, I mean, clubs like Portsmouth are taking notice of the Aussie talent down here, and I feel like once clubs catch on to the talent that's breeding down here. I mean, Australia is not traditionally treated as a footballing nation. I've been to Europe before; they think it's it's all rugby, it's all cricket, but we are a massive footballing nation. There's a lot of football to be played around here. So yeah, I mean, once they start to take notice, I think they'll realize just how good the talent is down here. And I think clubs like Bayern have taken notice, clubs like Portsmouth have taken notice. Obviously, Villa took notice of Gauchi. Of course, Gauchi's gone across on loan, I believe, to Barnsley, I want to say. But yeah, I mean, the fact that that clubs are taking notice of Aussie talent in the big leagues, I think it's shown how far not just the A League but Australian football has come in recent years.
Absolutely. I'll talk about Ian Kunda quickly. Obviously, this guy is probably hyped up to be our best young player. I think there's a lot of expectations on him, especially after that move to Bayern. He has played so far 3 games for Grasshoppers in the Swiss League. Hasn't scored or assisted yet, but give him time. It's the first pro football he's played in a while. Obviously, just playing youth football for Bayern. I think they're maybe third, fourth tier of Germany. I want to say so. Not that high of a level. I do think the Swiss League is a high level for him right now to be playing in. So it'll be good for him to get back in there. We've obviously seen some players go over to Europe, haven't done as well. Not as well as they would have liked, especially they get in the loan system. You think of Azani, you think of Gary and Qual. Unfortunately, hasn't really worked out for either of them in Europe. But I really do think Ivan Kunda's going to be different. I think this is going to be a good loan for him in a good league, and I think he comes back to Bayern and absolutely smashes it. So I'm looking forward to see how he does for the next 6 months in Switzerland.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's some good moves for our young players, and it's the future is bright for Aussie football for sure. And I think that just about does it for time as well. So yeah, we'll take a moment. We'll thank you for watching this episode of Sportswatch again, and again share it around. Like, comment, subscribe to Six News for not just sports coverage, but for ongoing coverage of the biggest headlines. And yeah, we'll thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.